CBS News editor-in-chief Bari Weiss spoke about her new role during an interview at the Jewish Leadership Conference earlier this week.
The Free Press founder presented her vision for how she thinks that legacy media can rebuild itself by reaching out to Americans who are closer to the center of the political spectrum. Take a look.
All of us see the moment that we're in. And all of us see that the choices that it feels like we have sometimes, which is Hassan Piker and Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes and, Andrew Tate, the kind of people that are rising in the podcast charts, those don't actually represent our values. And I don't think that they represent the values and the worldview of the vast majority of Americans. And so this is an opportunity to speak for the 75%, for the people that are on the center left and the center right that still believe in equality of opportunity, that still believe passionately in the American project.
Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro also spoke at the conference. He was alongside Weiss. Here he was praising her for her decision to return to legacy media at CBS.
And I just want to take a second and say how courageous it is for Bari to move back into a legacy media space, which does have disproportionate power and weight in the conversation, disproportionate resources in being able to actually ferret out the news. The dirty sort of unspoken secret about independent media and legacy media is that independent media has always been at least a little bit parasitic on legacy media. They have to rely on the reporting of legacy media because they have so many resources. So for Bari to go back into legacy media and give up the freedom and fun that independent media represent in order to actually go and capture an institution and take it back for something like sanity is an amazing thing.
Now, Weiss's comments were applauded by those who were in the audience, but online they were blasted by people from the left and the right, with many accusing her of being out of touch. Writer and reporter Zachary Carter says on X, quote, "I've been writing about elite versus popular politics for a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen elite consensus more disconnected from public reality." And journalist Glenn Greenwald writes, quote, "The idea that corporate media will be revitalized if it narrows the range of perspectives is so hilarious because it's of the opposite reality. Millions hate and distrust corporate media and have abandoned it precisely because it excludes all but the most establishment voices."
And a couple of the people who Weiss specifically mentioned as examples of political extremists also responded to the clip. Hassan Piker wrote, "What makes this funnier is that her outlet, CBS News, is currently trying to set up a debate with me." And Nick Fuentes writes, "Once you realize that people like Bari Weiss and Ben Shapiro are foreign interlopers who only care about Israel, then you have to disregard the rest of the expletive that comes out of their mouths. No, I'm not going to hear your hot take about AI or inflation. You are a foreign spy." Oh my God! I mean,
sounds extreme.
Who is obsessed? He's as obsessed with Israel as anyone else. So it's just everyone is too obsessed with it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway,
I think we have really. I want to talk about the actual content of what she said, because I strongly think that that was a solid point. You said when I watch the clip, I'm going to be blown away by kind of she dug herself in, but I thought that was a brilliant take coming from Bari Weiss.
Tell me why.
Because I think that as somebody who knows the responsibility and the weight of what we see on social media and operates in that independent media space, is that more people that I know than not are not like fist fighting each other over the comments that they would say on X and come into blows in the streets in the terrible way that I said that was, now we know, under foreign influence on these social media sites. And I think that I always have thought that the American public is much better than that we can have dialogue, that we can disagree, that we can be like how you saw George Bush and Michelle Obama standing next to each other and have directly opposing views on most things politically, but stand next to each other and have a joy moment that they're both parents at an event that is important to both of them and have some common ground. And so when you look at most of the public and you look at somebody like Nick Fuentes, who you've told me that people might take one policy from him, but don't take the racism, don't take the anti-Semitism, and they're just listening to maybe, let's say, the foreign policy things. Well, if that's true, and most people aren't like the actual racist part, well, then most of us don't want to hear the racist part, because that starts to dilute the whole movement, which you've argued. So when we bring in voices that take it way too far, we lose the message that is a real good message in there, people who actually want to have dialogue without getting off the rails. And so I think when we have influencers, yes, there's a space for them, or podcasters, whomever, there's a space for you to do whatever you want. It's a free range out there in the wild, wild west of social media, podcasting, and the internet. But when you have legacy media, so part of the responsibility is to bring voices that are going to articulate points, get into really friction style conversations, but not get into the point of being racist or condescending or devaluing an entire group. And I think if Bari Weiss can bring that, but also still raise the points of somebody like Nick Fuentes without the racism, then we're having a productive conversation. And I'd like to see that version of what CBS News looks like?
I think these are two different things. There's temperamental centrism of the Bush getting along with Michelle Obama type thing that I also find compelling and I think is good, to not always be screaming at everyone and to have a temperamental, moderate sensibility. But to constrain the dialogue to just centrism, as Bari was, I think, kind of doing there, she's basically doing a version of gatekeeping. She was saying Hassan Piker, whom I loathe, by the way, but Hassan Piker, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, they're outside the bounds of acceptable views. And then she, for instance, she suggested Dana Lash and Alan Dershowitz, who are two people who did a debate for the Free Press, her other website on gun rights. I like Dana Lash a lot. I like Alan Dershowitz a lot. That sounds like a great event to me, but I don't understand why Dana Lash has very provocative culture warrior type views. Alan Dershowitz has militantly pro-Israel foreign policy that's, I would say, outside the bounds of most regular people who are disinterested in this issue. So for her to say those people are allowed, but Hassan Piker and Tucker Carlson are not allowed, like, why is that the case? Why are you deciding that these people are extreme and these people are not? And really the only difference is these people agree with your foreign policy and then some, and these people don't. So you're gatekeeping on one specific issue that you have strong feelings on, that you are presuming is the majority view, where it doesn't actually, according to polling, it's not even the majority view among Democrats or Republicans at this point. So that's what rang hollow to me.
Fine, I accept that criticism. I think that, there are disagreements that are very obvious between her and like a Tucker Carlson, specifically on Israel and foreign policy. Right. That's obvious. And so to
also the
not acknowledge that as a problem.
The mainstream media, the legacy media before Bari Weiss, they would put Bari Weiss in the same category as Andrew Tate. Like, they can't distinguish. They say, Bari Weiss is also a right-wing extremist. So is Andrew Tate. We shouldn't platform any of them. So the right's answer to that was, you're afraid of an argument, you're afraid of debate, you're afraid of free speech, so we should platform all these people. So then to come in and then say, well, I'm just kidding, I meant just for me, not for any of these other people, that's going to ring a little hollow, I think, when the right has become so reliant on arguments about cancel culture and free speech, which were the premise of which, and Ben Shapiro was as full-throated a defender of them as any, is that you should not be afraid of debate with extreme, what you think are extreme positions. And again, I'm not criticizing. I think Ben Shapiro would be happy to do a debate with Tucker Carlson, or maybe with Nick Fuentes or Andrew Tate or whoever, or Hassan Piker. So it's not really him saying that he's not up for a debate, but with her saying these are specifically the people to be included in the conversation, it seems kind of arbitrary to me.
And people just have to remember quickly, because I know we have to go, is that Bari Weiss doesn't make any decisions for CBS in a vacuum. She still reports to the president, and there are parallel positions, like the president still of CBS News, that they discuss amongst peers. They're of the same staff.
Yeah, I'm not at all afraid that she's going to make CBS worse. I'm excited for her tenure at CBS, to be clear.
Yeah.
I think she's going to make it more inclusive of interesting, dissident, conservative, maybe libertarian, and maybe even non-interventionist views. It's going to be better than what it was before. I'm just quibbling a little bit with the distinctions she was drawing there, which I know are meaningful to her.
And she could have been trying to play to the crowd. Look what event she was at.
Right.
So, that's also something to note, that she was at an event that was specifically a gathering where you would play to that crowd.
We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Please stay with us.